How different is it to live in Broomfield versus Longmont, Colorado? They're only 18 miles apart, so they shouldn't be too different, right? Well, I think you might be surprised. One's a bit closer to the city, and one blends suburban living with rural living. Both of these are terrific and affordable suburbs of Denver. So if you're thinking about moving into the area, I'd strongly recommend checking both of them out. But let's dive in and see which one's a better choice. You want to pick the best suburb for you, right? Let's get started then. So the first comparison we have to do for these two suburbs would obviously be location. Depending on whether you're moving to the Denver area for work, play, or hopefully both, I'd say it's a big factor to decide where in relation to the city of Denver you'd like to be. So Broomfield is located closer to Denver, only about a 25 to 30 minute drive into the city. Broomfield is actually quite spread out, technically its own city and county, so depending on where you choose to live, it's going to affect the direct commute. The southwestern side of Broomfield sits closer to Route 36, which is the main avenue that runs up from Denver into Boulder. But if you're living on the eastern side of the suburb, then you'd probably take I-25 down into Denver, or wherever your work takes you. But work commute aside, Broomfield's proximity to these highways does make it easier if you're trying to get anywhere else, like Boulder, for example, or even farther north up to areas like Loveland or Fort Collins. But then also areas south of Denver, like Colorado Springs, for example, or maybe just getting onto I-70, which is the main highway that runs through Denver going east to west across the rest of the state. Not to mention the commute to the Denver International Airport is much easier. Something to keep in mind. But now for Longmont, this suburb is located a bit farther away to the north. Longmont is about a 45 to 50 plus minute drive into the city. So right off the bat, if your work takes you into Denver, I'd only recommend Longmont if your work's taking you to the northern half of the city. If it's in the southern side, well, you're at a higher risk for traffic and the commute's gonna be much longer. So perhaps consider a southern suburb instead. So from Longmont, it's harder to get into Denver, but you're still right up the road from Boulder. It's only about a 25-minute drive into that city. And then if you're looking to get up into Fort Collins, you can take either 287 or I-25. Honestly, the former is a much more scenic route. The driving point here is that Longmont, being a bit farther north from Denver, is a bit more rural. And I'll talk about that in the next section. So if your need to get into the city is important, then I'd recommend Broomfield. Which leads me to my next point, which is to discuss the outdoors. Colorado, at least along the Front Range, is big into the outdoors. Not surprising, right? But tethered to this topic of suburb location in relation to the city of Denver comes the availability of outdoor opportunities within the suburb and in the surrounding areas. For this, Longmont is definitely the winner in my book. But let me give Broomfield its credit. Since Broomfield is closer to Denver, it's more of an urban environment than Longmont. However, the suburb has done a great job providing its residents opportunities to enjoy the outdoors. There are several parks and open spaces within the suburb itself. One I'd love to mention is the Broomfield Commons Open Space, which is a massive public park that features soccer fields, a football field, playgrounds, a dog park, open area, and a recreational center. It is a gorgeous part of the suburb. But of course, Broomfield does feature several locations for scenic and peaceful trail hiking. Perfect for a morning walk or to take your dog out for some exercise. But if we look at Longmont, there's really no comparison. Since Longmont is farther away from Denver, as I just mentioned, it's less crowded, more rural, and capitalizes on the beauty of the Front Range. There are so many outdoor opportunities to be found in Longmont. Yes, the suburb does have its fair share of golf courses, parks, and the like, but it also has places like the St. Vrain Greenway, which is an 18-mile out and back trail that tours through the southern half of Longmont. It's gorgeous and a personal favorite of mine. But trails aside, Longmont also has places like the Union Reservoir or McIntosh Lake. Two excellent locations to go and enjoy the water, especially during the summer. If you're a lover of paddleboarding, kayaking, canoeing, or sailing, you need to go here. McIntosh Lake, since it's on the western side of Longmont, does provide some fantastic views of the mountains. It makes for a terrific backdrop. Okay, so outdoor activities aside, let's go back and see what either suburb offers from a shopping perspective. So both suburbs are actually quite built up, at least compared to some other suburbs in the area that are small by nature or under development. But in Broomfield, one thing to point out is Flatiron Crossing. Crossing and the surrounding shopping centers, which is a massive mall located on the southwestern side of the suburb. It sits right along Route 36 and receives a ton of traffic year-round. Now compare this to Longmont, and that suburb doesn't really stand out. Longmont does have its fair share of shopping centers, as you would expect any big enough suburb to have. But if you're trying to get specific items or browse a ton of variety, you're most likely heading down to either Flatiron Crossing or into Boulder, which has fantastic shopping opportunities. So it does tie back to location here, but Broomfield is the stronger suburb on this one due to the mall, and also due to its location relative to the greater Denver area. Being much more suburban than Longmont, it's going to be easier getting to the different shopping locations around the city. In the latter suburb, it's going to be a bit of a drive because Longmont just doesn't provide as much. So now let's transition and take a closer look at the educational opportunities in either suburb. For simplicity's sake, I'm only going to be looking at school districts that occupy the largest part of the suburb. Why do I mention this? Because in Broomfield there are technically 5 school districts, but the largest one, or at least one of the largest ones, is the Boulder Valley School District. The district has been ranked the #1 best school district in the greater Denver area, according to niche.com. The district has impressive statistics like a 92% graduation rate, an average SAT score of 1280, and an average ACT score of 29. The largest university BVSD graduates attend is, can you guess, the University of Colorado Boulder. Now in Longmont, the entire suburb is located within the St. Vrain Valley School District, which actually encompasses a much larger area as well. Now St. Vrain has been ranked the #5 best school district in the greater Denver area and boasts stats like a 90% graduation rate, an average SAT score of 1200, and an average ACT score of 27. The top universities attended by the graduates, Colorado State and CU Boulder. So both suburbs have top performing districts. However, Broomfield takes the lead here since one of the largest districts in the suburb happens to be the best school district in the greater Denver area. So now let's do an affordability and cost of living comparison. So looking at the median price of a single family home, in Broomfield it's just over $674,000, while in Longmont it's $622,000. But then if we look at townhomes or condos, the median price in Broomfield is just around $572,500, while in Longmont it's just over $440,000. So at first glance, Broomfield is the more expensive suburb, but not by a huge margin. The median price of a single family home in the greater Denver area is around $643,000. So both suburbs are perhaps within the margin of error here. However, before we write off Broomfield as the more expensive suburb, let's look at price per square foot and get a better idea of the size of the homes in these suburbs. So in Broomfield, the median price per square foot of a single family home sits around $253, which indicates that the median size of the properties here are around 2,664 square feet. Now in Longmont, the median price per square foot is $276, which means that the estimated median size of the homes here are 2,253 square feet. So even though Broomfield has a higher price tag, you're actually getting around 400 more square feet than you are in Longmont. That's definitely going to make an impact. Now for townhomes and condos, the price per square foot in Broomfield sits at $261, which indicates the estimated median size of these properties is around 2,193 square feet. And then in Longmont, the price per square foot is $300. So the estimated size of properties there would be around 1,466 square feet. Wow. So Broomfield's townhomes and condos have a little over 700 more square feet. That is a huge difference for these kind of properties, especially if you're looking for a place with a bit more space. It might be worth the difference in cost. And so with that, it's clear that Broomfield wins in some categories, while Longmont does in others. They're two different suburbs, and picking the right one may require a bit more research. If that's what you need to do, I recommend checking out these videos here. Both go a bit more in depth into either one and will provide a lot more information. I think you'll find it useful. This is Life in the Front Range. I'll see you there.